And again, this is especially when it comes to office politics. We need to pay attention to the dynamic of workplace and learn how to build influence in a positive way.
I mean, and something happened in that space. One of our colleagues decided the next morning to pick the towels in the room, just to pick the towel that she had used, packed it in a bag, then left with it, like just packed it and left. So what happened was,
good evening, everyone, and welcome to Sudka Podcast. And today's podcast, we are discussing how to survive career landmines. It's a very interesting topic because most of the time we don't prepare to face landmines. Before I continue, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Abdul Al Busaidi, and I am Managing Director of NAP and Busaidi Consultancy, where we do a lot of things. And besides that is coaching, leadership, and careers. We are talking about career landmine. What is career landmine? Basically, career landmine, the best way to say it is a metaphorical term for a situation or decision that we as a professional make that can seriously damage or derail our professional careers. Unlike, for example, a literally landmine, which is a physically planted. It's the difference between physical landmine and career landmine. It is often self-laid. We created that landmine. Or it can be a problem that has been buried in an organization and we are not aware. And then suddenly we step on it without realizing. So today we are going to discuss how professionals get into career landmines and what exactly can you do when you do get in a career landmine and how to survive it. Let's talk about the first career landmine that many professionals get into, and that is poor decisions or actions. Now, what is it? What does this mean? This can be anything, including making significant mistake at work. We all make mistakes. We are human. But then this is what you do. You try to cover it up. And that is a terrible mistake because at the end of the day, especially, for example, as accountants, you make a mistake and you try to cover it up, you know it will catch up with you. At the end of the day, there'll be some credits, speak. And not only that, accounts, and as long as they're involving other people, the last thing that you want to do to derail yourself is if you do make a mistake and you try to cover it up. The other poor decision, and especially nowadays in the area of social media, is to post inappropriate content on social media. That's almost a no-no, and especially if it's on LinkedIn. The other thing is just mishandling a situation at work. We are human beings, and we are dealing with people on a different level, in a different situations. And this is extremely common where you have some kind of a conflict with a colleague at work, or maybe even your boss. How you handle that matters a lot, and it decides a lot about where you are going in the future. Masi, good evening. How are you?
I'm all right, Abdul. How are you?
Pretty good. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're here. So today we are talking about career landmines. And one of the critical characteristic of a career landmine, of course, is self-inflicted. And one of the characteristic of a career landmine is poor decision. In your understanding, what else, what kind of a poor decision could someone make to undermine their careers?
Abdul, it's interesting that you bring about the discussion of social media and what we post. So that just reminded me of a story that I encountered recently, earlier on this year. So I worked in an organization. I've since moved from that organization, but then I was in an organization and I knew of somebody who had just been fired because of something that he had done within the organization, and it involved fraud, really. But then he was lucky enough to get another job in another organization. So he could have gone to the other. Yes, people can change, but then his first move was to post, happy to say that I've joined this and this organization as head of this and this. Like that was, and it was still very fresh in everyone's mind that this guy had just been relieved from work because of a fraud. So him posting this, I mean, it wasn't the best of moves, because what happened was is somebody immediately called the HR on that other side, why are you hiring thieves? So he was fired as soon as he joined the other employer based on a post, happy to share that I've joined such and such a place. And that to me, yes, it is good to highlight when a fraudster is there, but for him, I don't think it was the best decision to write on LinkedIn, happy to share at this particular point.
I'm just wondering, was who actually reported him to HR? Was somebody within the new company or
Somebody within
previous?
the old company where he had left.
Wow.
Yes.
Classic example of career landmine. So I can imagine how difficult it will be for him now to get another job. Similar to this gentleman, lack of awareness is probably one of the key key issue as to why people step on landmines. Sometimes many of us professionals find ourselves in a mess simply because we are unaware of the hidden dangers. And besides that, it could be related to office politics, where if you are an employee and you are not attuned to the power dynamics and alliance within organization, we've had many discussion previously where we were talking about office politics, and the last thing that you want to do in your career at the office is talk about other employees. Why? Because you just never know who she or he is aligned with. You are there to work. And if you are not happy about a certain situation, talk to your boss, talk to HR. But you have to be sincere, you have to be honest. The reason why you're doing what you are doing is not because you want to complain, it's because you want to diffuse a situation so that you can work in peace in that environment. And if you do that without talking about people behind their back, people will appreciate that. Office politics is like a boomerang. It will come and hit you back. That's definitely a no-no. Hi, Evelyn.
Hi,
Let's
Abdul.
bring you in. How are you?
Very well.
I think we have discussed previously in a leadership a session about trying to
Mhm.
avoid office politics,
Yeah.
and especially if you're not aware. Like for example, in your company, it's a big organization. How many people do you have altogether at the office in Nairobi?
About 150.
You see that. So you do
Mhm.
not know all the relationships. And the last thing that you want to do in that situation is to talk about somebody. What is your input about people stepping on landmines unaware of where what they're stepping on? What would you advise, Evelyn, as a manager, as a
Yeah.
leader?
Yeah.
By the way, congratulations on your appointment, recent appointment. That is fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
it's
Abdul.
good. It's good for us to say we know important people in Nairobi.
Thank
Go
you
ahead.
so much.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So for me, I wanted to share another landmine
Okay.
that I know a friend of mine experienced, and probably it's more related to what you're saying about the office politics and giving feedback. And I know we've had this conversation about giving feedback. So this friend of mine, there were promotions that were done. And the men seemed to be the ones getting promotion. And one time they are from a pitch with the boss, and the boss was asking, oh, so how are you preparing yourself? It's a lady. How are you preparing yourself to take the next level and to get promoted? And the lady, with no taking any word back, told the boss, seems like promotions here are meant for men. And that rubbed the boss off badly. So what followed then was the boss saying how she was unfocused at work, and that got to, other things piling up, them, the boss trying to even look for a replacement. And this is the staff who had been in the organization for a while. And anyway, for the boss to even suggest a promotion and ask how she's preparing herself, then there could be a bit of, the boss had seen potential in her. But you see, the way she responded, probably she was given feedback. It could be true. But you see, what I learned from that is, did the boss trust her feedback? Because it could have been true, but had they gotten to a level where she can just say anything there is to a boss who probably doesn't take feedback very well?
Wow, that is such an amazing story. That is such an amazing story. I mean, I cannot even comprehend. Hi, Whisper. I hear your voice. So, how are
Hi,
you?
Abdul.
What would you advise other women in terms of how they communicate in an environment where the majority of people are men, and the majority of bosses are also men, to avoid stepping on a career landmine because of what they say? Rispa.
Certain people are preferred, like if you look at the gender in the workplace, certain people are preferred to work with opposite bosses. Like if for you, you might prefer to work with a lady boss based on either your experience with a male boss or with a female boss. I've had an experience of working with a female boss in the past. And when I got my current boss, I was so concerned because my previous experience with a female boss was bad. It was bad. And so when I got into, that informal meeting where you get to know each other, even before signing off the offer letter, I opened up and I just shared my vulnerabilities from previous employment. And then we got to a place of starting right, knowing what my fears were and what I was looking for in a boss. But looking at what Evelyn has shared, it's important towards, same to what Marcy had shared, it's really important to learn and know your boss. It is your business to know who your boss is, their preferred way of talking, their preferred language, their preferred presentation of issues, or even their preferred way of giving feedback. Know yourself, know when it is not the best time for you to share feedback, however genuine it is, so that you're in the right mindset, you have the right language, and you have the right example. That would be my comment.
It's excellent comment, really, because at the end of the day, bosses are exactly that. They are bosses. But besides that, they're also human beings. And the last thing that you want to do, somebody who believes they are bosses, they have the power, and for you to go and berate them and say some ugly things like, this place only men get promoted. And why in the world would you want to do that? Okay, and we were reading in 360 leadership about how to lead upwards, and one of the items that I really like in that book was is to understand the chemistry of your boss. It is so important because you just never know. There are some days when they're in a good mood, some days when they're not in a good not in a good mood, and you cannot just say whatever you want for the sake. This is a lesson to all of us. You just don't get promotion because you show up every day at 8 o'clock. No, you have to work on it. You have to be productive. There are certain things we all need to do in terms of our career to be able to get that opportunity so that we can get promoted. We can get promoted. So that was definitely a catastrophe. And what are the expectation of our bosses? What if I'm working hard, but that the expectation of my boss is higher than what I have? So what do you do in this situation, Catherine? You actually go ask your boss, am I meeting your expectation? I mean, this discussion of how to communicate with your leaders is something that we can have a whole session by itself, but it is so important. Are you meeting expectation? Because if you are not, all those promotions that will be coming, they will not include you. Hi, Ruth. Let's go to Francis Charo. Before somebody says, why are you picking all ladies? So Francis, please, we have to have a balance here. Hello, Francis. Francis is quiet. Benjamin.
Good evening, Abdul.
Hello.
Good evening, Benjamin. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
What do you say? What do you say? We want to be equal here before we get accused. Huh?
No, boy child must stand.
Yeah, Abdul likes to pick up. Abdul like always to call ladies. Huh? He's a ladies' man or something like that. So, Benjamin, do you know what is your expectation of your boss as far as you are concerned?
I'm not 100% sure if I understand my boss because just slight experience.
Benjamin, let me stop you right there. Did you say you do not understand your boss? Because a few minutes ago here, we were given a master class of relationship with your boss. I hope you were here when Rispa was talking to us. Did you hear what she said?
No, I just found she was just closing on her remarks when I joined. Maybe I can touch base with Rispa.
Yes.
She can give me that one-on-one session.
Yes.
On what she just said seems to have been an interesting stuff.
It is. What she said, the key point here is exactly the opposite to what you're saying. She said you need to understand your boss. You need to understand yourself. You need to understand your boss. In that way, both of you can have a proper relationship.
Just to give an experience, earlier on when I joined the role in, I struggled a lot. So by the time I understood what he needed, till it took me some time to really figure out. After figuring out, nowadays I find it quite easy. I understand how he needs his work to be done. I also understand how he needs his reports to be sorted.
So Benjamin, did he hire you?
Yes, he had me.
Okay. I want you to have this in your mind. He actually took risk of hiring you and giving you the job. Because whatever you are doing is a direct reflection of who he is. So maybe this is the issue that we were having a discussion a few minutes ago with expectation. And I like what you just said, as much as I was a little bit stunned, because the last thing that you want to do is staple a landmine, not realizing that you do not understand your boss and you think everything is cool. So knowing a problem is a good thing. Now,
Yeah.
in our leadership classes, we say leadership, there is a possibility that you can lead upwards. You can direct your boss. The man has problems. And the reason why he hired you is for you to help him solve those problems. Now, if at a given time there are problems that's much more than he can handle, this is the reason why he's acting like the way he does. So, what am I saying? Because at the end of the day, he's human. He's a human being. There will be days when no matter what you do, he would not be the person that you expect him to be. But at the professional environment, we are hired to provide value and work, and our existence is all about what we can do for people who hired us, for us to give them value. If you think it's about you, that you need to understand him, oh, he needs to understand you, oh, That's a problem. Thank you so much, Benjamin. Let's go to Derek. Hi, Derek.
Good evening, Abdul.
So, what is your take of what Rispa said, Benjamin, and some of the things that I have said in relation to yourself and how either you have seen people with about to step on a career landmine or you yourself came on that kind of situation? Derek.
Okay, I might have joined in a few minutes late,
Yes.
so I just had a conversation with Benjamin.
All right. Yes. Let
But
me ask you.
but I was like, yeah,
Let me ask you in a very simple manner, Derek.
yeah,
We all have problems at work. Oh, in fact, there
sure.
are problems at work. That's why many of us don't like our jobs because of all these problems. But yet, many of us manage to go 3, 4, 5. You have people who have been at their employment for 6, 7, 10 years. And the reason being, in spite of all these problems, they find a way to manage themselves. And that does not mean that all the situation is perfect. No, they do sometimes step on landmines. My question to you is, given all these problems, we call them landmine here, Derek, what is your experience, either with your boss or coworker, that you can share with us so that we can decipher and see how we can add some more insight on it? Derek.
Yeah, thanks for that. For me, I think I believe understanding your boss is a big win for you at your place of work. And I'll
Can I
say
ask
this
you
because,
why, Derek? Why you think it is
yeah,
important?
I'll say this based on my experiences with my different bosses who have
Mm,
worked. So many a times you'll struggle if you don't understand your boss and don't do the expectations that he or she requires you to do. So the only success stories from majority of people I've interacted with is ensuring that you understand your boss. And most bosses, rarely do they love surprises. So for me, I took it up to for my all my KPIs. I'll make sure that I'm able to understand what the boss requires of me.
mm.
Then I'm able to put that effort to ensure that I'm able to work towards that. And also seeking feedback from your boss, because the moment you seek feedback from your boss is the easiest way to understand what your boss wants for you to do, and also to understand his emotions in terms of as delegating work to you and how you relate with you. So it was a struggle where I did not understand what the boss wants, because in my early experiences, I could always complain about my boss. But once I understood what they want and I could follow what they want me to do and never
Mm.
surprise them with anything in terms of what I'm supposed to do. So in case of any issue that I can foresee will be a challenge, I'll just let them know upfront to be able to be in a situation whereby we are not having, like what Rispa said, a confrontational conversations.
Derek, that's a fantastic answer. We should have asked you to come as a guest on how to survive the landmines. The one landmine that we come across many, many times, and let's call it a skeleton, having past employment issues, similar to the gentleman that was terminated because of fraud, and yet he did not learn his lesson. If we are getting interviewed and somebody asks a question, the interviewer asks a question, and on a situation that was bad for where we were coming with our previous job, the last thing that you want to do is lie. Be honest. Why would I, if I was her, the lady that was terminated because she didn't believe that men get terminated, she said, you know what? I made a bad judgment in how I answered my question. As much as I saw, as much as I believe, those were words or those are situations that I should not have handled that way. So I made a mistake. and I've learned my lessons. I'm not saying if you do something like that, the interviewer will like it. There's a probability they will, especially if they are professionals, because you're honest. We have to be very, very careful during interviews, and even if something, you have a job and a boss or somebody HR comes back and say, we have heard this and this about you. We need to know what is our skeletons and be prepared to answer them in a manner that shows that we are professional. Hi, Tori, you're here. What is your take of all these types of landmines that we have? Which ones of this lack of preparation, skeletons, poor communication, where you're not really transparent and especially with your boss and team members, or and manage expectation? Which one of these resonate very well with you, Tori?
You know, I've picked one thing today when the previous person was speaking. Sorry, I've forgotten his name. He said your
Benjamin?
boss, yeah, yes, Benjamin. He said something that was important, and it spoke to me that your boss doesn't like surprises. And that is important. And it talks about communication and actually on knowing your boss better. So I'll just speak towards it, because what Rispa mentioned, that you have to know thyself and thy boss. As a student of, I've been doing a self-awareness journey for the past 3 years and 2 years, and that journey has helped me know myself, and especially my colleagues, and most importantly my boss. I want to speak about my direct boss because she's here. I'll just speak of one that is not there so that then it's not awkward. So one of the things, when I joined my current firm I work in, the one of the bosses is he was very, very strict. And when I joined, I didn't understand what is wrong with him, because there's a lot of noise. He was unpleased with quality. But with time, being that I've stayed in the farm for 5 years, I've been able to understand how to manage him. And there are sometimes I can easily know whenever I want something, I know how to say it. I know even when. When I see him in the morning, I can easily say this specific agenda, I cannot even speak about it. But sometimes I know he's ready, he's chatty. You can always go and talk to him. So knowing your boss is very important. And it actually helps you, because I've had a lot of situations and even friends who we've spoken about, oh, my boss is a bully. And even what I think Evelyn mentioned, the story of, because sometimes you'd think that women or men are being, you're being bypassed promotions. But if you do a self-reflection, ask yourself, am I really doing my work? If I look at my job descriptions, am I really performing? Do I ask for feedback? And what you've mentioned, Abdul, am I actually doing what my boss wants me to do? Of most importance, as someone who's had a bit of subjective feedback, I've been able to see what I need to pick, and others I'm just saying this one is not a very objective person, so I'll just pick what I need to pick. But what has spoken to me is communicating and knowing about your boss. Yes, Abdul.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tori. You see, again, I'm just going to repeat myself here. We are hired because we are there to solve problems. And if you want to really build a wonderful relationship with your boss, when you do have a problem, don't go talk to them. Don't go talk to your boss if you have a problem. You know why? He hired you or she hired you to come up with solutions. So, unless you have a solution, that's the last thing that you want to do, go talk about problems. We always have to remind ourselves we are at work to solve, to give value. And what is the value? Is providing solution of the problems that we have at the company. So when there is a problem, an unusual or a unique problem, then look for answers. Then go and announce that we have a good news and the bad news. The bad news is this is the problem, and the good news is this is the solution. That's how you you put yourself in the eyes of your boss. So now what we need to do is we need to discuss how to survive these career landmines. See, career landmines happen to us. So whether you have stepped on one or trying to avoid, which you should be doing constantly, requires a proactive and strategic approach. The first thing is that take responsibility and be honest in any situation. If you make the mistake, the best course of action is to own it. You're a human being. Hiding or lying about it, lying about a problem will almost make a situation worse in the long run. Marcy, go ahead.
Okay, before we go to the solutions, I just remembered a story that I just thought I should share. So my first employer was very generous with things such as team building, and we could really be taken to nice places. Like I was at the lowest level at that time, but still we could go for team buildings for a whole weekend at an Eshipai and stuff like that. So
Wow.
this one particular time we go to an Eshipai, and we are all very excited because remember we're just from college. Your salary is really 33,000 shillings. You have nothing, but you're at an Eshipai. So I mean, and something happened in that space. One of our colleagues decided the next morning to pick the towels in the room, just to pick the towel that she had used, packed it in a bag, then left with it, like just packed it and left. She's not a thief really, but I think it's just the excitement. You forget yourself that, and then you start reasoning that we've paid for these things are ours. So what happened was, in Ashipai, then I think they've had these experiences. So they decided to do checks. Immediately you leave the room when you're back at the reception, then they do checks in your bags and stuff like that. Then they find towels and bathrobes. So this was like one of those landmines that you can't recover from. Like it was the boss the next whole week. I mean, she was fired after 1 week because you're a thief, but you're not really a thief. You just forget yourself that I'm still in a I'm still in a professional space. But now I think that you forget your professionalism because you're in this exciting social space. And that has been a career landmine. And this is not the only story, like two of them. The other one was about somebody picking sugar and coffee from the office because they used to provide that for us. And then somebody decides to steal not really steal, I mean, it was just taking bags of sugar every time, 2 kgs, or the coffee, the instant coffee tins. And they were fired for stealing these things. Again, forgetting your professionalism in a social setup. And you imagine ni malia umma, hizi vitu ni zetu. Yeah, so I thought I should bring that up before we go to the solutions. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. Wow, those are good stories. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, all seriousness. These are kind of mistakes. These are poor decisions. The first thing that I discussed when we started the session was that we make poor decisions, and these are terrible poor decisions. I mean, the company has gone out of its way to send you up a nice place, and the last thing that you want to do is take a towel. For what? Take a picture. We're in the era where we have cell phones. So we need to make proper decision. I mean, sound decision when it comes to properties that don't belong to us. And so thank you so much about that. The other item that I want us to discuss is how to survive this landmine is be aware of your surroundings. And again, this is especially when it comes to office politics. We need to pay attention to the dynamic of workplace and learn how to build influence in a positive way. The last thing that you want to do is thinking that you are building influence by talking to someone about someone else, because the other person, the person that you are talking with, enjoys the conversation. It does not help you. There are many, many ways that you can do. You can be a good communicator. In the meeting, ask thoughtful questions and be supportive of team members. When you do that, then you become positive in the eyes of other people, of the workers, your boss, and all the work environment. Because when you do attend meetings, and there are articles that have been written about this, how to prepare for meetings. You know what is the discussion all about. Put your mind into the subject matter. Listen very carefully and wholeheartedly from your heart. Answer questions because you have thought about it. When you do that, not only you are showing that you do care, and they may be a situation where even the company is about to step on a landmine and they did not see it. But when you ask thoughtful questions, you may help them. You may help the company. You may help your manager. And as a result, then you get the positiveness of the positive aspect of how you want to be looked at instead of going and talking people behind their back. Good evening, James. James Mungai.
Good evening, Abdul. Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
Pretty good. What is your take of how to survive the landmines based on the problems that we have discussed?
Following today's talk,
Mm-hmm.
feedback on communication, on
Mm.
self-awareness. So I think surviving on landmarks, and one of the things that was not mentioned as a landmine, is the fear of failure, because sometimes you are trapped in that landmine, and you find yourself you are paralyzed, and you avoid even feedback. You even procrastinate on what you are working on. So I think is to identify and to be aware, as you've put it, that these work problems exist, and you identify the earlier signs of such situations for you to curb them. So I think for me is to keep yourself in the learning curve, making sure that you take that failure as feedback, because sometimes failure is an alarm for growth. So for me, I think that is my takeoff, and to keep on with that self-awareness, and by that I think you'll be able to conquer the landmines. Thank you.
James, before you go, to have a fear of failure is one of the most beautiful things you can ever have. Because the minute you don't have that, then you are complacent. Why am I telling you that? I used to have that. During my early career, I used to have that. In fact, even after I wrote an article on Work Like a Consultant, where I said, after I finished my bachelor's, I have a degree and I can go to work. I went back to junior college to take English 201, 202, because I was from Malindi, Kenya, and the English there is extremely poor, and I did not have confidence in myself. So what did I do? No, it's not I did not have confidence. I had fear. I could not even speak clearly, let alone write. Granted, eventually, after you live in an environment like the United States, you pick up the lingo, you pick up the conversational, how you can communicate with people. But it is because of the fear. What if I have to write a memo? Back then, it was more about memos than emails. What if I have to write memo and I do not know how to write English? So having fear is not a bad thing. In fact, any of you guys here, if you do not fear about something related to your professional, you are in trouble. Beside going back to junior college to take English 201 and 202, is I also went and joined Toastmasters International. Why? To improve in my communication. Why? Because I was so scared of talking to Wazungu. The future basically belongs to you, provided you do one thing. You never stop learning. When I say never, even in your 60, 70, 80, you can always learn something. And why do we want to learn? Because by learning, we bring in a whole new way of thinking. And life, at the end of the day, is exactly that. It's all about thinking. Thank you so much, James. Let's go to Whisper. Hi, Whisper.
Hi, Abdul.
What do you do to survive these landmines?
There's a lot that one can do, but we have said, let me start from there. What we have aligned on is first taking time to be intentional about knowing self, knowing your work environment, understanding your peers, your bosses, and the system. Because there at the workplace, for instance, there are people that have nothing to lose. They're possibly coming to work as a part-time. They have no career ambition. They're just looking for a place to sit. But in terms of their well-being, they're already well taken care of, either based on their background or just their situations. So that then means that the first thing when you do, you go to work, and these are things I've learned over time. When you go to work, you have to know your crowd or the people in the environment and choose wisely the people that you tangle with for work to happen, because some people are going to be the people that bring you down. Ni kama ni kama nini? Ni kama panya. We've been talking about do not take time to talk about people. Focus on what has brought you to work. Support each other and get the work done. But then sometimes you end up in a cohort of friendships at work that end up to work in your detriment, right? Because you've heard people say everybody knows where they're coming from and why they're at work. And so you get into work and then you start making some cocoons with other people. And these are cocoons that are not really driving you to where you want to go to, or in a way that uplifts your visibility at work. So for me, the first thing is identify who to identify with at work and who to, you're an average of, I think, 5 people you associate with. So your associations at work must be rightly and carefully chosen. But then from an aspect of what we are currently reading, your peers influence your outcome. Whether it's your peers, whether it's your juniors, whether it's your superiors. So you cannot get into an office space and decide, for Mimi, I'm only respecting the bosses. Every other person na wakanyaga tu nikienda, right? Thinking that they do not add value to your journey. But we've realized that everyone at every level can influence the path that you take at work, whether it is the subordinates, whether it is your boss's peers, whether it is your peers, because your peers speaking well about you have learned is a big addition. Your peers work extremely close with you, so you cannot be competing them. You are completing them. If your peer is struggling with understanding Excel, they're not in accounting, walk them through, show them, because at the end of the day, it's an important tool at work so that you're seen as a collaborator and not a competitor. And with that, then you're becoming influential, and that influence is helping you to teach and to show the way. And while at it, you also continue to grow.
To summarize, how do we survive landmines? The first thing is take responsibility and be honest. If you made a mistake, the best course of action is just to own it. You're a human being. 2, be a problem solver. Don't just identify a problem. Come up with a proposed solution. Good news and bad news, or bad news and good news. Be aware of your surrounding. What Rispa example she gave a few minutes ago, it is so true. It happens every time. Be aware, because especially true for office politics. Pay attention to the dynamics of the workplace and learn how to build influence in a positive way. Also, manage your expectation. Constantly, whenever I hear somebody says I get feedback from my manager, that music to my ears, because we constantly need to communicate. You constantly need to communicate with your superiors and stakeholders to ensure everyone is on the same page regarding the goals, progress, and challenges. And be prepared. For if you are looking for work, we know Kenyans are always on the look for a job. There are landmine questions. Have a brief and honest or positive answer. Avoid elaborating or speaking negatively about your past employer. That's a no-no. So finally, know when to get help. Just as a person in a real mind should call for help, if you find yourself in a minefield, call for help. And it's the same way with a professional. A professional facing a serious career landmine may need to ask for an advice from a mentor, a career coach, or a trusted colleague at work. Sometimes an outside perspective is what is needed to see a way out. And if you find yourself in a problem, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of life. You are not the only one that is in a similar in that situation. Other people have been in that situation and they found a way out. I sincerely wish everyone good luck. Thank you very much for attending. Bye-bye.